There are things I placed inside you that you have spent years trying to explain, hide, or silence. There are parts of you that made you wonder why you feel so deeply, why certain places make you uneasy, why you can sense something is wrong before anyone says a word, why some dreams stay with you long after you wake, and why certain burdens seem to reach your heart even when they do not belong to you. You have looked at these things and sometimes called them weaknesses. You have wondered why you could not simply be like everyone else. But listen carefully, because I want you to understand something before you go any further. Not everything that made your journey difficult was meant to destroy you. Some things were meant to teach you how to carry what I placed within you. My child, you have spent enough time measuring yourself against people who were never given your assignment. You have compared your sensitivity to someone else's strength. You have compared your quietness to someone else's confidence. You have compared your way of seeing the world to people who were never meant to see it exactly as you do. And because you could not understand the difference, you began to believe something was wrong with you. But I am asking you today to stop judging yourself through the eyes of people who do not understand what I am developing within you. There are spiritual gifts that are not always obvious when they first appear. They may begin as sensitivity. They may begin as an unusual awareness. They may begin as a burden you cannot explain. They may begin through dreams, through prayer, through an unexpected knowing, or through a deep compassion for someone who is hurting. And because these experiences can feel unfamiliar, you may spend years trying to suppress them. But what you need is not fear. What you need is wisdom. What you need is discernment. What you need is to bring everything back to me and allow me to teach you how to steward what you carry. There are 7 gifts we are going to walk through in this message, and I want you to listen carefully to everyone. Do not rush toward the gift that sounds impressive. Do not force yourself into a category because you want to feel special. Instead, examine your life honestly. Notice the patterns. Notice what has repeatedly happened in your journey. Notice the things you have experienced in prayer, in relationships, in difficult seasons, and in moments when you were alone with me. Some of what you have called strange may simply need to be understood correctly. And I want you to stay with me until the end, because the final gift is not the gift most people would expect. It is quiet. It is hidden. It often comes with a weight that other people cannot see. Yet it can become one of the deepest expressions of love when it is surrendered to me. Before you reach that final revelation, you need to understand the foundation beneath every spiritual gift. The gift is never meant to become your identity above me. The gift is not a trophy. It is not a reason to feel superior. It is not permission to judge others. Every true gift should lead you closer to humility, love, prayer, wisdom, and service. The first gift I want you to recognize is the ability to discern what is happening beneath the surface. Some people walk into a room and notice only what their eyes can see. But there are others who immediately sense that something has changed. They may not know exactly why. They may not have evidence. They may simply feel an unusual heaviness, peace, tension, or disturbance. Sometimes they meet someone who appears kind and pleasant, yet something inside them tells them to move carefully. Other times they encounter someone who looks ordinary but carries a peace that immediately settles their heart. If you have experienced moments like these, do not automatically call yourself paranoid, strange, or overly sensitive. At the same time, do not automatically assume every feeling is a divine message. This is where wisdom matters. Feelings must be brought before me. Impressions must be tested. Discernment is not suspicion. Discernment is not judging people by appearance. Discernment is learning to recognize what deserves your attention and what does not. There may have been moments when you ignored that inner warning because you wanted to please someone. Perhaps you knew a relationship was unhealthy, yet you stayed because you were afraid of disappointing the other person. Perhaps you sensed that something was not right, but you convinced yourself that you were imagining it. Later, when the truth became visible, you remembered the warning you had felt at the beginning. I am not telling you to live in fear of people. I am teaching you to stop abandoning your wisdom simply because someone else cannot understand what you perceive. You can love people without trusting everyone equally. You can forgive someone without giving them unlimited access to your life. You can remain kind while still establishing boundaries. Discernment should not make your heart hard. It should make your choices wiser. And there is another side to this gift that you must understand. Sometimes you may feel drained after being around certain environments or people. You may need quiet after crowded places. You may find yourself carrying emotional heaviness that you cannot immediately explain. Instead of becoming ashamed of this sensitivity, learn to bring it to me. Ask me what belongs to you and what does not. Ask me what you need to release. Ask me where you need to step back. Ask me where you need to pray instead of react. You do not have to carry every atmosphere you enter. You do not have to solve every problem you notice. You do not have to rescue every person who is hurting. Discernment without boundaries can become exhaustion, but discernment surrendered to me can become protection, wisdom, and service. Perhaps this explains why some seasons of your life felt so confusing. You sensed things before you could explain them. You noticed changes in people before others noticed them. You felt uncomfortable in places where everyone else seemed comfortable. And instead of asking what I might be teaching you, you asked what was wrong with you. Today, I want you to change that question. Instead of asking, "Why am I like this?" ask, "God, how do you want me to steward this?" That question will take you from confusion toward maturity. And remember this, a spiritual gift does not remove the need for wisdom. It increases your responsibility to seek wisdom. If you sense something, pray. If you dream something, seek understanding. If you feel a burden, bring it to me. Do not build an entire conclusion from one emotion. Learn patience, learn humility, learn to wait. Learn to test what you perceive instead of immediately announcing it. You are not required to prove that you are spiritually gifted. Your life will speak through the fruit that grows from what you carry. If what you believe is from me, it should eventually produce greater love, greater wisdom, greater humility, and greater willingness to serve. So take a moment now and look honestly at your life. Have you repeatedly sensed things beneath the surface? Have you recognized deception before it became obvious? Have you felt peace around certain people and caution around others without knowing why? Have you learned through experience that ignoring certain warnings brought consequences? If you agree that you need greater wisdom and discernment in your life, type "yes" in the comments. Let that simple word become a personal declaration that you will stop ignoring wisdom and start bringing what you sense to me. And do not leave yet. We are only beginning. There are deeper gifts ahead, and one of them may explain the dreams, impressions, and unusual experiences you have carried for years. Keep watching, keep your heart open, and remember that what matters most is not simply discovering what you carry. What matters is learning how to use it with love, wisdom, humility, and purpose. And if these Bible-centered messages have encouraged your walk with Christ, we invite you to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs biblical hope today. If this ministry has blessed your life, and you would like to help us continue sharing scripture-centered encouragement around the world, you can support the ministry through the link provided below. There are moments when I speak in ways you do not expect. Sometimes I speak through the quietness of prayer, sometimes through circumstances, sometimes through the wisdom of another person. And sometimes I allow you to notice something in the night that stays with you long after the morning arrives. You may have wondered why certain dreams feel different from ordinary dreams. You may have awakened with an image, a place, a person, or a message so vivid that you could not simply dismiss it. You may have seen something in your mind while praying, or carried an impression that returned again and again without explanation. Today, I want you to understand that you should not immediately fear these experiences, but neither should you blindly interpret everything you see. Bring them to me, seek wisdom, learn patience, and allow understanding to come in its proper time. Some of you have spent years remembering dreams that other people forget within minutes. You wake up and can still remember the details. The atmosphere remains with you. Sometimes a person appears in the dream whom you have not thought about for years. Sometimes you see a situation that later reminds you of something that unfolds in your waking life. Sometimes you wake at an unusual hour and feel an unexplained pull toward prayer. And because you cannot explain why these things happen, you have wondered whether there is something different about you. There may be meaning in some of these experiences, but I want you to walk carefully. Do not make every dream into a prophecy. Do not allow fear to become your interpreter. Do not build your decisions on dreams alone. Bring what you experience into prayer and allow wisdom to examine it. A dream that truly draws you toward me will not require you to abandon wisdom, love, truth, or peace. You do not need to become obsessed with signs. You need to become attentive to me. There is a difference between chasing experiences and learning to listen. Chasing experiences makes you restless. Listening makes you patient. When you chase every unusual feeling, you become vulnerable to confusion. When you surrender those experiences to me, you learn to wait until the meaning becomes clearer. Perhaps you have had a dream that stayed in your heart for years. Perhaps you have seen an image while praying that seemed connected to something you were facing. Perhaps you have repeatedly dreamed about the same place or situation. Instead of immediately asking everyone around you to interpret it, take it into your private time with me, write it down, remember the details, pray over it. Ask what it is producing inside you. Does it lead you toward wisdom? Does it encourage you to pray? Does it make you more loving and attentive? Or does it fill you with panic and obsession? You must learn the difference. There is another rare gift that often works quietly alongside discernment, and it is the word of knowledge. This is the experience of suddenly knowing something that you did not receive through ordinary conversation or visible evidence. A person's name may come into your thoughts. A situation may become clear in your mind. You may feel an unexpected urge to speak encouragement to someone, and later discover that your words addressed exactly what they were silently carrying. You may have experienced this without understanding it. Perhaps someone was standing in front of you and you suddenly knew they were struggling even though they were smiling. Perhaps you felt compelled to ask someone if they were okay, and they broke down because they had been hiding their pain. Perhaps during prayer, a specific person came strongly into your thoughts, and you later discovered that they needed prayer at that exact time. Do not use these experiences to make yourself important. Use them to become more compassionate. If I allow you to know something about another person's struggle, the purpose is not to give you power over them. The purpose may be to help you love them better. The purpose may be prayer. The purpose may be encouragement. The purpose may be protection. The purpose may simply be to remind someone that they are not forgotten. This is where maturity becomes essential. Knowing something does not mean you must announce everything you know. Sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is remain quiet and pray. You do not need to expose another person's private pain to prove that you perceived it. You do not need applause for being accurate. If you truly want to serve me, you will care more about the person than about being recognized. Some of you have spent years feeling strange because information seems to arrive in your mind unexpectedly. You may suddenly remember someone you have not spoken to in months. You may feel compelled to pray for them. You may think of a particular situation without understanding why, and then later you discover that something important was happening in their life. When this happens, respond with humility. Pray first. Ask me whether you should speak, and if you do speak, speak gently. Never use what you perceive to manipulate another person, frighten them, control them, or make yourself appear spiritually superior. Remember, spiritual gifts are not weapons, they are responsibilities. The more sensitive you become, the more carefully you must guard your heart. Because if you are constantly absorbing every impression, every emotion, and every possibility, you will become exhausted. You may begin confusing your own fears with spiritual discernment. You may mistake anxiety for revelation. You may believe every thought deserves immediate action. This is why stillness matters. Come back to me. Quiet your mind. Pray before reacting. Wait before declaring. Test before believing. Love before confronting. And when you do not know, admit that you do not know. There is tremendous freedom in those words. You do not have to pretend to understand everything. You do not have to give an answer to every mystery. Sometimes faith means allowing something to remain unanswered until the right time. And if you have experienced unusual dreams, visions, impressions, or moments of unexpected knowing, do not allow them to become the center of your spiritual life. I am the center. Gifts are only gifts. They point toward purpose, but they are not the purpose themselves. You may discover that your greatest gift is not the experience itself, but what the experience teaches you to become. Perhaps dreams teach you to pay attention. Perhaps discernment teaches you to establish boundaries. Perhaps unexpected knowledge teaches you compassion. Perhaps sensitivity teaches you to pray. Perhaps uncertainty teaches you humility. This is where your life begins to change. Instead of asking, how special am I because I experienced these things, ask, how can I love better because of what I have experienced? That question will protect your heart. My child, there may have been times when you felt overwhelmed by how much you sensed and noticed. You may have wished you could become less sensitive. You may have wanted to shut everything down because carrying so much awareness felt exhausting. But you do not need to become numb. You need to become grounded. Sensitivity without wisdom can become a burden, but sensitivity surrendered to me can become compassion. So tonight, or whenever you have a quiet moment, take a page and write down the dreams and unusual impressions you remember. Do not exaggerate them. Do not force an interpretation. Simply record them and pray. Ask me to reveal what deserves your attention and what should be released. Over time, patterns may become clearer, and if you have experienced a dream, vision, or unexpected knowing that later proved meaningful, type "I believe" in the comments. Not as a declaration that every dream is a message, but as a reminder that you are willing to seek wisdom instead of living in confusion. Stay with me, because we are moving deeper now. The next gift is one that touches suffering directly. It is the gift of healing, and understanding it requires more than believing that something extraordinary can happen. It requires learning how compassion, prayer, humility, and faith can work together when someone is hurting. Do not rush ahead. Let this message settle inside you. The goal is not to collect spiritual experiences. The goal is to become a person who can carry what I place in your hands without allowing pride, fear, or confusion to control you. Keep watching until the end, because every gift we uncover will lead us closer to the deepest question of all, not simply what you carry, but what you will do with it. There are seasons when I allow you to see suffering differently. While others may notice the situation and move on, something inside you refuses to look away. You may see someone hurting and immediately feel the desire to pray. You may hear about another person's struggle and carry it in your thoughts long after the conversation ends. You may find yourself drawn toward people who are sick, wounded, discouraged, or forgotten, not because you think you can save them, but because something inside you wants them to know that they are not alone. If this has been part of your life, listen carefully, because compassion can become a doorway through which I teach you how to serve. The gift of healing is not about making yourself powerful. It is about becoming available. It is not about proving that you have something others do not have. It is about allowing love to move through your prayers, your presence, your encouragement, and your willingness to stand beside someone when they are weak. You may have noticed that hurting people often feel comfortable around you. They may tell you things they have never told anyone else. They may sit beside you and suddenly begin crying without knowing why. They may call you when they are discouraged because something about your presence makes them feel safe enough to speak. Perhaps you have wondered why people continually bring their pain to you. Perhaps you have even felt exhausted by it. My child, compassion does not mean carrying every person's entire life on your shoulders. You are not their savior. I am. You are not responsible for fixing everything. You are responsible for loving faithfully, praying sincerely, and knowing when to step forward and when to step back. There is a difference between compassion and control. Compassion says, I will stand with you. Control says, I must fix you. Compassion listens. Control demands. Compassion prays. Control becomes frustrated when the outcome does not happen immediately. If I am teaching you to serve people who are hurting, I want you to learn the first lesson of healing. You can be present without believing you are responsible for the result. There may be moments when you pray for someone and see improvement. There may be moments when someone experiences unexpected strength or recovery. There may also be moments when you pray with everything inside you and the outcome does not unfold as you hoped. Do not allow either outcome to determine your worth. Your role is faithfulness. The outcome remains in my hands. This is important because many people become discouraged when they believe a spiritual gift means they must produce a miracle every time. That pressure can crush the very compassion that first drew them toward hurting people. I do not want you living under that pressure. I want you to learn to pray with faith while remaining humble enough to say, God, I trust you with the result. Healing can take many forms. Sometimes a body receives strength. Sometimes a heart receives peace. Sometimes a wounded person finally finds courage to speak. Sometimes forgiveness begins. Sometimes someone who has been living in hopelessness discovers one more reason to continue. Never limit healing to what can be seen immediately. When you enter the presence of someone who is hurting, do not rush to give them an explanation. Listen, ask what they need, pray if they welcome prayer. Encourage them without making promises you cannot guarantee. Remind them that seeking appropriate help does not contradict faith. Faith and wisdom can walk together. And if you feel unusually drawn toward people who are suffering, ask me how you should respond. Perhaps I am teaching you to intercede. Perhaps I am teaching you compassion. Perhaps I am preparing you to serve in a way you have not yet imagined. But do not assume that every burden means you must personally carry it. Learn to release people back into my hands. This lesson becomes even more important when we move toward the next gift, because there are people whose lives seem repeatedly marked by circumstances that could not have been arranged by human effort alone. Doors open unexpectedly. Provision arrives at precisely the right moment. Situations that seemed impossible suddenly change. What looked like the end becomes a new beginning. The source of this gift is not human ability. It is the working of miracles. You may have experienced moments in your life that still make you shake your head when you remember them. Perhaps there was a financial need and help appeared when you had no idea where it would come from. Perhaps an opportunity arrived at a time when every other door had closed. Perhaps something that seemed permanently broken suddenly shifted. Perhaps a person who had been against you changed their position. Perhaps circumstances aligned in a way you could never have planned. When you experience moments like these, do not immediately turn them into a story about how powerful you are. Turn your attention toward gratitude. A miracle should produce humility, not arrogance. If I move in your circumstances, remember the one who opened the way. If provision comes, remember the one who provided. If an impossible situation changes, remember that you were never the source of your own salvation. And there will be seasons when you pray for a miracle and nothing appears to change immediately. Do not conclude that I have abandoned you. Sometimes the miracle is an open door. Sometimes the miracle is protection through a closed door. Sometimes the miracle is strength to endure what you thought would destroy you. Sometimes the miracle is a change inside you before there is a change around you. You must learn not to define my presence only by dramatic outcomes. There may be times when I am working quietly beneath circumstances you cannot yet understand. You may see no movement, but that does not mean nothing is happening. You may see no provision, but that does not mean provision is impossible. You may see no answer, but that does not mean your prayer has been ignored. This is why faith becomes essential. Faith is not pretending that difficulties do not exist. Faith is looking directly at the difficulty and still refusing to believe that the difficulty is greater than me. Faith does not deny reality. Faith refuses to make reality the final authority over hope. Perhaps you have been the person others leaned on during difficult seasons. Perhaps people have asked how you remain calm when circumstances are falling apart. Perhaps you have carried an unusual confidence that somehow everything will work out, even when you could not explain why you believed it. If so, do not treat that faith casually. But understand this clearly. Supernatural faith is not arrogance disguised as confidence. It is not demanding that I follow your timeline. It is not refusing to accept reality. It is not claiming certainty about things I have not promised. True faith remains surrendered. You can say, God, I believe you can do this, and I will trust you even if the answer comes differently than I imagined. That is mature faith. There may be days when everyone around you panics and you remain steady, not because you know exactly what will happen, but because you know who holds what will happen. There may be nights when you cannot see the next step, yet something inside you tells you to keep moving. There may be moments when circumstances tell you to quit, but prayer tells you to remain faithful. Do not confuse this steadiness with weakness. Sometimes the strongest person in the room is the one who refuses to surrender hope. If you recognize that God has repeatedly taught you to remain faithful when circumstances gave you every reason to panic, type, "I trust God" in the comments. Let those words be more than a comment. Let them become a decision you practice when the next storm arrives. And now we are approaching the deepest part of this message. We have spoken about discernment, dreams, unexpected knowing, healing, miracles, and faith. But there is still another dimension that many people misunderstand. It is the ability to carry people in prayer when nobody else knows you are carrying them. Some of you have awakened in the night with a person's name on your heart. You may not have known why. You simply felt that you needed to pray. Perhaps you have cried for people who never knew you were crying. Perhaps you have felt the pain of others so deeply that you needed to retreat into quietness and release it to me. Do not assume that every emotion belongs to you. Learn to ask me, is this mine to carry, or is this mine to pray and release? That question will protect your peace. Because the rarest form of spiritual sensitivity is not simply feeling deeply. It is learning what to do with what you feel. You were not created to become a container for everyone's pain. You were created to become a vessel of love, prayer, wisdom, and service. There is a difference. So if you have spent years wondering why people find you when they are hurting, why your heart responds so strongly to suffering, or why prayer sometimes becomes an overwhelming need rather than a simple habit, keep watching. The final part will bring us to the hidden gift that often carries the greatest weight. It is the gift that can make a person feel alone while quietly changing lives they may never see. And when you understand it, you may finally understand why certain seasons of your life felt heavier than they seemed they should have been. Do not leave before you hear it. Your goal is not merely to discover a label for yourself. Your goal is to learn how to surrender your sensitivity, faith, compassion, and spiritual awareness to me so they become useful in the lives of others. Stay until the end, because what you discover next may change the way you understand your past, your loneliness, your prayers, and even the things you once considered weaknesses. There is a kind of burden that does not announce itself. It does not always appear in your circumstances. It does not always have a name. Sometimes it simply arrives in the middle of an ordinary day as a heaviness in your heart. Sometimes you suddenly think about someone you have not spoken to for years. Sometimes you wake in the night with a person on your mind and you cannot explain why. Sometimes you begin to pray and tears come before you even understand what you are praying about. And sometimes you carry sadness that seems larger than your own circumstances. If you have experienced this, I want you to slow down and listen, because there is something important you need to understand about the burden you carry. You were never meant to believe that every weight on your heart is evidence that something is wrong with you. There are people who feel deeply because they have learned compassion through their own wounds. There are people who notice suffering because life has taught them to recognize pain. And there are people who seem to carry an unusual burden for others, continually feeling drawn toward prayer, encouragement, protection, and intercession. This is what the message calls the intercessor's heart, the rarest and most hidden gift. My child, you may have spent years asking why you feel responsible for everyone. You may have entered a room and immediately noticed who was hurting. You may have sensed tension before anyone spoke. You may have cried over situations that did not directly involve you. You may have carried people before they ever asked you to carry them. And because nobody could explain why you felt this way, you may have concluded that you were simply too sensitive. But sensitivity itself is not the enemy. The question is what you do with it. If you feel another person's pain, bring it to me. If someone comes strongly into your thoughts, pray for them. If you feel compassion rising within you, Allow that compassion to move you toward love rather than fear. But do not take the place that belongs to me. You can stand in prayer without becoming responsible for the outcome. You can care deeply without destroying your own peace. You can love someone without carrying their entire life on your shoulders. This distinction will protect you. Many people with a strong intercessory heart spend years exhausted because they do not know how to release what they carry. They absorb every emotion around them. They feel guilty when someone else suffers. They believe they must fix every problem. They think that if they stop praying for one moment, something terrible might happen. But I do not call you into slavery. I call you into surrender. Prayer is not supposed to make you believe that everything depends on you. Prayer is supposed to remind you that everything ultimately rests in my hands. When you pray for someone, you are not carrying them alone. You are placing them before me. When you cry for someone, you do not need to remain trapped inside their sorrow. You can release that sorrow into my care. When you wake in the night and feel an urge to pray, you can pray sincerely and then return to rest. You do not need to spend the entire night trying to solve a situation that belongs to me. Learn the rhythm of carrying and releasing. Carry the person in prayer. Release the person into my hands. Carry the concern. Release the outcome. Carry the compassion. Release the fear. This is how you protect the gift from becoming a burden. Some of you have been misunderstood because your heart responds differently. People have told you that you think too much. They have told you that you take everything personally. They have told you to stop caring so much. Perhaps there was truth in the need for boundaries, but that does not mean your heart was defective. You simply needed to learn how to steward what you feel. There is a difference between being emotionally overwhelmed and being spiritually compassionate. Emotional overwhelm says, I must carry everything. Spiritual compassion says, I will love, pray, and trust God with what I cannot control. You must learn that difference. Because if you do not, the very thing that could become a calling may become exhaustion. You may begin avoiding people because their pain feels too heavy. You may withdraw because you are afraid of absorbing another person's emotions. You may become numb because feeling everything became unbearable. But numbness is not the only answer. Boundaries are another answer. Prayer is another answer. Wisdom is another answer. Rest is another answer. You do not have to choose between loving people and protecting your peace. You can do both. There will be people you are called to encourage. There will be people you are called to pray for. There will be people you are called to help for a season, and there will be people whose burdens you must place back into my hands after you have prayed. Do not feel guilty about that. Even Jesus withdrew to quiet places. Even those who served others needed rest. If you believe you must constantly remain available to every person, you will eventually have nothing left to give. Your private relationship with me must come before your public service to others. When your heart becomes crowded with everyone else's pain, come away with me. Be still, breathe, pray, write down what you are carrying. Then ask me one question. What belongs to me and what belongs to you? You will discover that some things were never yours to carry. This is one of the greatest lessons for an intercessor. You are a servant, not a savior. You are a vessel, not the source. You are a person I can use, but you are not responsible for controlling what happens after you pray. There may be prayers you pray for years without seeing the answer. Do not assume those prayers were wasted. You may never see everything your prayers touched. You may never know who was strengthened because you remembered their name before me. You may never discover which moment of darkness became lighter because someone prayed. That is why intercession is often hidden. The world celebrates visible achievements, but some of the most important things happen where nobody applauds. A person may never know that you prayed for them. A family may never know that someone stood before me on their behalf. A stranger may never know that their name crossed your heart in the middle of the night. And that is okay. You do not need recognition for prayer to have value. You do not need a platform to make an impact. You do not need people to know your name for your obedience to matter. Sometimes the greatest work happens in secret. And if you carry this kind of heart, I want you to stop measuring your importance by how much you can endure. Suffering more does not make you more spiritual. Exhaustion does not prove your love. Destroying your peace does not prove your commitment. Love needs wisdom. Compassion needs boundaries. Faith needs surrender. Intercession needs rest. This is how you continue for the long journey. Perhaps now you understand why certain seasons felt unusually heavy. Perhaps you understand why you have cried for people who never knew. Perhaps you understand why prayer sometimes feels like more than words for you. Perhaps you understand why you can enter a quiet room and suddenly feel the need to pray. But remember, do not chase the feeling, chase God. The feeling may come and go, the calling to love remains. And if you recognize yourself in this message, type "I will pray and release" in the comments. Let those words become your new practice. Pray faithfully, then release the person, the situation, and the outcome into my hands. And now, there is one more lesson you must understand before this message ends. Discovering a gift is not the finish line. Knowing that you may carry discernment, dreams, knowledge, healing, miracles, faith, or an intercessory heart does not automatically make you mature. Gifts must be stewarded. You must learn humility. You must learn patience. You must learn wisdom. You must learn boundaries. You must learn love. Because a gift without character can become dangerous. Knowledge without humility can become pride. Discernment without love can become suspicion. Faith without surrender can become presumption. Compassion without boundaries can become exhaustion. And spiritual sensitivity without wisdom can become confusion. So I'm not simply revealing what may be inside you. I am teaching you how to carry it. Do not hide what I have entrusted to you, but do not glorify yourself because of it either. Use what you have been given to encourage someone, protect someone, pray for someone, serve someone, or point someone toward hope. That is where the gift becomes meaningful, and if you have stayed with me this far, do not stop now. The final part will bring everything together. We will talk about what you should do when you recognize these patterns in your life, how to stop treating your sensitivity as a curse, and how to turn what you carry into a life of purpose without losing your peace. The greatest question is not, how many gifts do I have? The greater question is, how will I use what God has placed in me? Stay until the final part, because the answer to that question can change the way you see your past, your present, and the people you are called to serve. Listen to me carefully, because this is where everything comes together. You have heard about discernment, dreams and visions, unexpected knowing, healing, miracles, supernatural faith, and the hidden heart of the intercessor. Perhaps while listening, you recognize yourself in one of them. Perhaps you recognize several. Perhaps you are still uncertain. But I do not want you to become obsessed with counting gifts. I want you to understand the purpose behind them. What I place within you is never meant to become a reason for pride. It is meant to become a reason for service. You may have spent years wondering why your life felt different. You may have wondered why you could not simply ignore certain things, why you noticed what others overlooked, why you felt compassion when others walked away, why certain dreams remained in your memory, why you sometimes sensed that you needed to pray, why your faith remained alive during circumstances that caused everyone around you to lose hope. And perhaps you interpreted all of this as something wrong with you, my child. Stop measuring your life by the standards of people who do not understand your journey. You do not need to become someone else to have value. You do not need to silence every sensitive part of yourself just because someone misunderstood it. You do not need to apologize for caring deeply, but you also do not need to carry everything you feel. This is the balance I want to teach you. If you have discernment, use it with love. If you have strong dreams or visions, approach them with wisdom. If you experience unexpected knowing, remain humble. If you feel called to pray for healing, pray with compassion and surrender the outcome to me. If you witness extraordinary provision or unexpected breakthroughs, respond with gratitude instead of pride. If you have unusual faith, use that faith to strengthen people rather than judge those who are struggling. And if you carry an intercessor's heart, learn to pray deeply without believing that everything depends on you. These gifts are not decorations. They are responsibilities. You may have wanted confirmation that you are special, but I am giving you something more valuable than confirmation. I am giving you direction. If I have placed something within you, then learn to steward it. Do not hide it because you are afraid of criticism. Do not display it because you want admiration. Do not exaggerate it because you want people to notice you. Do not use it to control people. Do not use spiritual language to manipulate someone into doing what you want. Bring it back to me. Every gift must remain connected to love. This is why character matters more than appearance. Someone can speak beautifully about spiritual things and still lack kindness. Someone can claim discernment and still judge everyone around them. Someone can talk about faith and still treat struggling people with cruelty. Someone can pray loudly and still refuse to forgive. That is not the fruit I desire. I want what you carry to make you more loving. I want your discernment to help you protect peace rather than create suspicion. I want your sensitivity to make you compassionate rather than fearful. I want your faith to make you steady rather than arrogant. I want your prayers to make you humble rather than proud. I want your awareness of spiritual things to make you more dependent on me rather than more dependent on your own understanding. You do not have to prove that you are chosen by constantly searching for signs. Walk faithfully, love faithfully, pray faithfully, serve faithfully. The evidence will be found in the fruit of your life. Perhaps one of the most important things you need to do now is stop hiding because of what people said about you. Maybe someone called you too emotional. Maybe someone told you that you care too much. Maybe someone laughed because you took prayer seriously. Maybe someone dismissed your dreams. Maybe someone made you feel foolish because you sensed something before they did. Release their opinions, but do not replace their opinions with your own pride. You do not need to say, "They were wrong, therefore I must be extraordinary." Instead say, "God, teach me what was real, teach me what was emotion, teach me what was wisdom, and teach me how to grow." That prayer will keep you grounded. There will also be seasons when your gift feels silent. Your prayers may seem unanswered. Your dreams may become quiet. Your discernment may feel uncertain. Your faith may feel weaker than it once did. Do not panic. A gift does not disappear simply because you are walking through a quiet season. Sometimes silence is where maturity develops. Sometimes I teach you to trust without constant confirmation. Sometimes I teach you to love without feeling emotionally overwhelmed. Sometimes I teach you to pray without needing immediate results. Sometimes I teach you to remain faithful when there is nothing dramatic happening. Do not confuse silence with abandonment. You are still being formed. And if you have discovered that you carry unusual sensitivity, then create healthy practices around it. Spend time in prayer. Keep a journal. Rest. Establish boundaries. Seek wise counsel. Do not isolate yourself. Remember that spiritual maturity grows in community, not only in private experiences. You were never meant to walk alone. There will be people who understand some parts of your journey. There will be people who can correct you when you are mistaken. There will be people who encourage you when you are tired. Allow yourself to receive from others as well as give. And when you help someone, do not make them dependent on you. Point them toward God. Encourage them to seek wisdom. Remind them of their own responsibility. Your role is not to become the center of another person's life. You are called to serve, not to replace God. This is especially important if people begin coming to you for advice because they believe you are spiritually sensitive. Never allow their dependence to become your identity. Pray before you speak. Admit when you do not know. Encourage people to seek appropriate support when needed. Humility will protect what pride would destroy. Now I want you to remember the 7 gifts again. Discernment teaches you to look beneath the surface. Dreams and visions teach you to pay attention while remaining wise. The word of knowledge reminds you that unexpected understanding should be used to serve, not impress. Healing teaches you compassion and surrender. Miracles teach you gratitude for what you cannot manufacture yourself. Faith teaches you to remain anchored when circumstances shake. And the intercessor's heart teaches you to stand in prayer for others without becoming their savior. These gifts may look different, but they all lead toward the same place: love expressed through obedience. So if you recognize yourself in this message, do not simply close the video and forget what you heard. Choose one practical step today. If you struggle with discernment, stop making decisions from pressure and begin praying before responding. If dreams trouble or intrigue you, write them down and seek wisdom rather than immediately interpreting them. If you sense someone needs prayer, pray for them instead of gossiping about them. If someone is hurting, listen before trying to fix them. If your faith is strong, use it to encourage someone whose faith feels weak. If you carry other people's burdens, pray and then release those burdens into my hands. Small acts of obedience can become the beginning of a transformed life. And if these words have brought peace or understanding to your heart, type, "I will use what God gave me" in the comments. Let that be your commitment. Not to become impressive, but to become useful. Not to become famous, but to become faithful. Not to prove that you are chosen, but to live in a way that reflects the love you have received. And now, if you feel happy with my words and this message has helped you understand something about your life, take a moment to like this message, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who may need this encouragement. When you share it, you may help someone who has spent years believing they were broken simply because they experienced life differently. And if you want to support my ministry, you can do so through the link given below. Your support helps these messages continue reaching people who need hope, wisdom, prayer, and encouragement. But remember, the greatest support is not a click. The greatest support is what you do after the message ends. Forgive someone, pray for someone, encourage someone, set a healthy boundary, choose peace, return to prayer, help someone who is hurting, and stop hiding the good that I have placed within you. You may never know how many lives are touched by one quiet act of obedience. The person you encourage may encourage another. The person you pray for may find strength to keep going. The person who feels forgotten may discover hope because you took the time to care. That is how a gift becomes a calling, not through applause, not through attention, not through proving yourself, through love. So look at your life again, but this time, look with compassion. The seasons that made you feel different may have taught you wisdom. The loneliness may have taught you dependence on me. The pain may have made you sensitive to the pain of others. The waiting may have strengthened your faith. The disappointments may have taught you discernment. The nights you spent praying may have prepared your heart to intercede. Your past does not have to remain a prison. It can become preparation. You are not required to understand every chapter before you move into the next one. You only need to remain willing to let me shape you. Do not call yourself broken because you feel deeply. Do not call yourself useless because your work is hidden. Do not call yourself forgotten because your prayers seem unanswered. Do not call yourself ordinary because nobody applauds what you do in secret. There are things happening through faithful lives that the world will never measure. And perhaps that is exactly where your greatest strength will be found. So walk forward with humility. Carry what I have entrusted to you. Release what was never yours. Protect your peace. Love people well. Pray without pride. Serve without needing recognition. And keep your heart close to me. Because the goal was never simply to discover how many gifts you carry. The goal was to discover how much love can flow through a life that is surrendered to God. And when you finally understand that, you will stop asking, "Why am I different?" You will begin asking, "How can I use what I have been given to bless someone today?" That is the question I want you to carry with you. Not am I chosen, but am I faithful? Not how rare am I, but how much love am I willing to give? Not how many people will notice me, but how many people can I serve? Walk forward now. Do not hide. Do not boast. Do not fear. Pray, listen, love, serve, and trust me with the rest. What I placed within you was never meant to remain buried. It was meant to become light for someone walking through darkness, strength for someone who is tired, hope for someone who has almost given up, and prayer for someone who does not even know that someone is standing in the gap for them. You do not have to carry the whole world. Just carry today's assignment faithfully. And when tomorrow comes, bring tomorrow to me. You were never asked to be everything. You are simply asked to be willing. And if you remain willing, I can do more through your surrendered life than you could ever accomplish through your own strength.